Alright, in this video we're going to look to see how to do the solutions for lessons 6.3 to 6.6 quiz. So let's go ahead and see which problem I start out with. Remember, mine might be in a different order than yours was. Oh boy, so I'm starting with probably one of the trickiest ones in the entire quiz, because this is from lesson 6.6. So this is one of those story problems. Okay, so let's read it and see how we would set this up. So it says a criminal justice department at a local university estimates that 85% of the cases brought in the trial in the county court, the defendant is actually guilty. They also recommend or determine that 10% of guilty defendants are found innocent and that 5% of innocent defendants are found guilty. A separate sheet of paper, complete the table below. Remember to convert percents to decimals, then type in what you got for each box without rounding. All right, so I'm just going to recreate this over here. So we're going to have our table. Create a 3x3 grid, just like we were doing in class. And so we have our found guilty. So this would be like our test. Okay, because you have a jury. Oops, can't spell. So we have a jury that's going to be deciding whether or not people are guilty or not, or the judge will be finding that out. And so they can be found guilty or found innocent. So this is the test. Okay, so when we had other problems, we had test positive, test negative. This is the test side. The top side is what actually happened. And so you have people that go to court that are actually guilty. They did whatever they're being accused of. And I still can't spell. There we go. And then we have people that are actually innocent or not guilty. So people that go into court and they did not commit the crime that they're being accused of. All right, so let's plug in what we know. So let's start at the beginning. We know that 85% of the cases brought to trial in the county court, the defendant is actually guilty. So that's a total. 85% are actually guilty. Well, that means 15% that show up are innocent. They also determined that 10% of guilty defendants are found innocent. Okay, so that means 10% of guilty defendants, so those that are actually guilty, are found innocent 10% of the time. So that means that 85%, we're going to break up to 10% here. So that means 90% of that 90% of the time, those that are actually guilty are found guilty. And then it says, we'll figure out what those numbers are in a second. And then it says they are also determined that, or they also found that, okay, can't read, that 5% of innocent defendants are found guilty. So 5% of innocent, so those that are actually defendants, or actually innocent, 5% of those are found guilty. So 5% of the 15% that's happening. So that means that 95% of the time, those that are actually innocent are being found innocent. So the next thing we're going to do is we need to figure out what these actual values are. So I'm going to take 0.9. Now remember, the instruction said do not round, so we're going to leave them as decimals. So 0.9 times 0.85 gives you a 0.765. And then 0.1 times 0.85 would be 0.085. Now I'm just going to double check, because if I add these two together, remember I should get 0.85. So if I take 0.085 plus 0.765, sure enough I get 0.85. So I can be confident I'm doing the correct thing so far. So next I'm going to take 0.05 times 0.15, and that gives you 0.0075. Remember the instruction said not to round. So if I take 0.95 times 0.15, I get 0.1425. And let me just add those two together. If I take 0.1425 plus 0.0075, sure enough I get 0.15. So now I can be confident when I find my row totals that those are going to be correct. So 0.765 plus 0.0075 gives me 0.7725. Now I'm going to take the next row. I'm going to take 0.085 plus 0.1425. And when I do that, I get 0.2275. And if we add those together, we should get 1.0, which in fact we do. So now let's go ahead and put in that information. So we would have had 0.765 in this spot, 0.0075 here, and 0.7725 here. Then the next row we'd have 0.085, 0.1, whoops, 0.1425, and 0.2275. Down here we'd have 0.85 and 0.15. All right. So what is the probability that a defendant who is found guilty is actually innocent? So what is the probability that a defendant who is found guilty, so out of those that are found guilty, what percent is actually innocent? So out of those that are found guilty, so there's 0.7725 that are found guilty. Out of those, 0.0075 are actually innocent. So when you type that in your calculator, you're going to get a decimal of 0.00579. It keeps going on forever. Now, the question says to round to the nearest percent. So first, if we change this decimal to a percent, we would get 0.58%. But again, that is not the nearest percent. The nearest percent here would be 1%. So we would put 1 over here in this box. All right, so now to figure out the other one. So the other one, it says, what is the probability that a defendant who is found innocent is actually guilty? So now we're looking at out of those that are found innocent. So we're going to focus on our denominator is going to be the 0.2275. And out of those that are found innocent, we want to figure out what's the probability that they are actually guilty. So that's the 0.085. So when you take 0.085 divided by 0.2275, we get a decimal of 0.3736. It keeps going on and on forever. Again, we're round to the nearest percent. So now if I move the decimal 2 places to the right, we would get 37%. So that would be our answer for the last box. Whoofta! That is a big problem. And I would say that this problem was probably the hardest one on the entire quiz. So if you got part of that one right or most of it right, good job. If you got all of it right, pat yourself on the back. All right, so this one says evaluate 72, a permutation of 72, having or selecting 3 items at a time. So remember that we could do this one. There's a couple different ways we could do it. But one way would be to say that we're selecting 3 items. And we'd have 72 items for the first one, 71 for the second, and 70 for the third. And if you multiply those together, we get 357,840. Again, we're supposed to type this in without commas. So just type that in as 357,840. All right, it says the test you're taking is 5 multiple choice questions with 4 choices each and 5 true or false questions. How many different ways are there to complete the test? All right, so this is one of the overlapping lessons. So we had 6-3. I have this on here twice just because in years past, this is the types of questions that people struggle with sometimes. And so this one, if we have 5 multiple choice questions with 4 choices each. So there's 4 choices and repeating those 4 choices 5 times. Or if you want to do it the long way, you can do it that way. There's going to be 5 multiple choice questions, each of them with 4 choices. So you take and multiply 4 times itself 5 times. That's why I just like the 4 to the 5th power. And 5 true or false questions. So with the true or false question, there's 2 choices, and there's going to be 5 of those. So then we would have 4 to the 5th times 2 to the 5th. And when you do that on your calculator, we get 32,768. So again, we're going to type this in without commas. All right, so this is one where we're just reading a table. So it says, consider the following table of professional staff and degree granting institutions in the fall of 2019. So we can see that there are some people that got managerial degrees, faculty degrees, research assistants, and other. And then our totals are given in here and along the bottom. All right, so it says, what percentage of professional staff are male faculty? Okay, so what percentage of professional staff? So the professional staff is all of these. So here we're going to have our denominator is going to be out of all the professional staff. So out of the 2,272,583. What percent are male faculty? So there's a total of 1 million. Oh, no, I'm sorry. the male faculty would just be the 664,775. Okay, because the other ones are research assistants, managerial staff, and other. So we would have 664,775 that are male faculty out of the total professional staff. So we would divide those. We get 664,775 divided by 2,272,583. And we get, it says to write your answer, round to the nearest percent, no decimals. So if we round that to the nearest percent, we would get 29%. So we get 29% for that one. And then for the next one, what percent of professional staff are research assistants? So it says what percent of the professional staff. So again, out of all the professional staff, what percent are research assistants? So we'd still use the same denominator. So out of that professional staff, what percent are research assistants? So that's including male and female. So there's 293,047. All right, so when you do that on your calculator, you should get about 13% there for that one. Again, rounding to the nearest percent, no decimals. All right, how many permutations, 5 letters long, can be formed from the letters of the word century? So in the word century, there is a total of 7 letters. So we have a permutation of 7, and we're going to choose 5 of those. So one way to do that is using blanks. So we're going to have 5 blanks because we're going to have 5 that we're selecting. We have 7 letters to pick from first, so 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3. And when you do that on your calculator, you get your answer of 2,520. So it would be 2,520 ways for that to happen. Last problem. All right, how many ways of winning are possible if the state fair gives prizes for first, second, third, and fourth places in the jam or jelly category that has 30 people enter the contest? So this time we're going to have a permutation of, so there's 30 people, and we're only going to be selecting prizes for first, second, third, and fourth place. So we could have 4 places, so it'd be 30 people that could be selected to get first place, 29 for second, 28, and 27. So we multiply those together, that'll give you your answer. And your answer then would be 657,720. Would be your answer for the last question there. So hopefully this answers all the questions that you had from this quiz. And again, if there's anything at all that's still confusing to you, you want to make sure that you know how to do this for the test that's going to be coming up. So please make sure that you get support, get the help that you need from me, or go back and watch some of those videos so you know how to do those particular problems. And with that, good luck as you continue to study and prepare for the test.